You're listening to The Talent Sync, a collaborative podcast production from JobSync and the Surveil Candy Benchmark Research Program. The Talent Sync is about anything and everything recruiting and hiring. Literally the kitchen sink and how all things in talent acquisition work together, should work together, and how sometimes they don't. Now it's time to sync up with your hosts, Leah Daniels and Kevin Grossman. Today's episode is about how human and AI fraud abound. Enjoy the podcast. Leah, is it springtime now for you? Is it really springtime in the Bostonian area?
I think it is. I have the most beautiful weeping cherry, and it is in full bloom this week. And I'm looking at it right now. It is gorgeous.
Lovely.
So now I think we have reached spring.
Oh, that you know what? That is awesome. You'll have to send me a picture of that. I mean, we had a ton of rain off and on again in April, which is good for us. Unfortunately, the snowpack in the Sierra Nevadas is about at 20% of normal and continues to melt pretty fast, and that's not good for late summer water reserves. But a lot of the reservoirs are full. But spring. We have kind of more perpetual spring here than you have, that's for sure.
You're bragging. I can tell.
Well, no, I mean, hey, but you love where you live, right? I love where I live. So there you go. I mean, I think that's definitely a good thing. But but the kind of switching gears, and this is kind of my segue to talk about what we're going to talk about today. So about 2 weeks ago, this isn't the first time this has happened. I get contacted by a supposedly independent recruiter, i.e. headhunter, if you want to call the old school name, right?
Yep.
And we all have had those over the years, and, letting me know that I'm a perfect match for these great jobs.
As always, as you are always a perfect match.
And I knew, and of course I'm like, okay, let's play this out a little bit because I'm just curious because I looked the person up and I'm not going to throw the person under the bus, but the person did exist. Now, there's people who actually impersonate those people if they're real people. And this was an actual independent recruiter, supposedly on LinkedIn. That person never accepted my LinkedIn invite, which leads me to believe that it wasn't the person. So, whatever, long story short, I kind of played it out a little bit and going back and forth and putting myself together. And by the way, I couldn't find the jobs either online that this person was referring to. And so I get to a certain point, and then she's recommending that I upgrade my executive profile and my resume, meaning improve upon it, making it more
okay. Not pay her to approve it.
Well, what's interesting is that she didn't at first pitch her own services. She pitched another resume writer services, which I thought was interesting. I thought it would come directly from her. So I had a little brief exchange with this other resume writer. This person wanted to charge me nearly $2,000
Oh.
to work on and improve my resume. I tried to connect with her online and she didn't accept either. So I'm not sure what's going on there. But long story short, I came back and said, no, I'm good with what I've put together. So, this is where we're at. And then the original headhunter, independent recruiter who reached out, then pitched her services at a much discounted rate. Said, well, I can help you for $500.
Oh.
And I'm like, no, thank you. I'm good. And then nothing. And then ghosted. The reason why I'm bringing this up kind of segue, because we're going to talk about all kinds of fraud. We should.
Yeah.
That's not new. That's been going on for even pre-AI, right? Of these kinds of folks.
There's been people who are quote unquote experts who have been trying to solicit money from candidates trying to get a job forever, right? And it comes in waves where all of a sudden you see a lot of it and then it dies down, you see more of them. But the number of people who are actually experts and versus the number of people on social media saying they are is a very different number, right? There are lots of fake experts out online trying to hustle a dollar from candidates,
Well,
people who are trying to improve their life.
and that's the thing that was it's sad. Again, these are all things that I kind of knew going in, and if these people were even who they say they were, or whatever. I mean, I think that's why I kind of what I wrote up this week in a piece that I put out this week was about just look out for these scams, especially in this market today, which is a lot. It's very difficult for professional level individuals looking and new grads as well, and which is another thing I'll bring up in during this call. But just to wrap this up, that recommending that look for these scams. This is what you need to look out for. Recruiters reaching out, having really great job, and then trying to sell you because usually if it's totally legit, they're not doing that, right? Because the companies are
Right.
paying them to find these people
Yep.
and bring them in. So those are the red flags to look for, requesting payments. And it's sad, and then the person, of course, goes to me because I'm not going to give them any money or
Right.
anything else. And I mean, but that's the thing. And when I did a search on LinkedIn for independent recruiter via Sales Navigator, which is a tool that I use, there was only about 2,000 profiles that came up, but there's also over 20,000 recruiting firms in the US alone. some
Yep.
some boutique individual, but and there's a lot of legitimate services that are out there as well. But you just folks be wary as we talk about in this particular episode of fraud that this is existing. We're not even jumped into AI yet.
Right.
And just a kind of a quick related note, Leah, and then we can keep moving on too. There was a post in my newsletter every 2 weeks. I post like a set of news links that I curate and pull together. And there was one talking about how it's one parents who historically have, tried to do everything they can to get their kids into certain colleges, now are trying to do everything they can to get their kids jobs.
Yep.
Now that's not new, I know, but we're talking about tens of thousands of dollars that are
Yes.
being paid to career strategists and career individuals that are, and again, hopefully most, if they're legit or not, I don't know, but I'm like, network, folks. I mean, but that's not what this episode's about. But I mean, I think we're in a place right now where it's fraud is unfortunately rife across all bounds. Now you go. Tag, you're it.
Yeah. So I was telling you I did a webinar earlier this week with my friend Jason Roberts
Yep.
from Cielo and Andrew Godonsky. I never say his name right.
That's right.
From
Gadomski.
Aspen.
Yeah.
Yes, I
Gadomski.
got it right this time.
Yeah.
From Aspen Analytics. And we spent an hour just pulling apart what is fraud. Like even just putting a definition around it isn't simple because there's lots of different things in there. And what was interesting was following that hour, we really needed 3 hours to be fair, but we had an hour. Following that, I got three separate messages that were like, that was great. I wish you guys told us what to do next. What should I do about it? And it's a really important question. And so I thought what would be interesting is like, let's spend a minute and sort of put some buckets around the fraud, like what kinds of fraud we're talking
Hmm.
about, and then talk about some solutions that are available to you, or some approaches you can have today to deal with it. Not comprehensive. I'm not going to recommend specific technologies because I haven't used them, so I can't vouch for them. But we can talk about what you can do as a company or as an individual having to wrestle with these different kinds of fraud, and they are different, right? So quickly, one is fraud that happens at the application stage. And that actually has to divide into a couple of categories. So you have fraud group one, let's call it, which are the human is not the one doing the applying.
Right.
Automation is.
Hmm.
Now, there is some fraudulent activity that is happening in that, for example, you are supposed to say, I commit that everything I'm saying is truthful and honest. Really hard to do that when you aren't the one doing that,
Right. Right. Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
Also, the AI bot may not be answering questions correctly for you, and it may be rewriting your resume to help you look better, which may be adding some skills or some experiences you don't actually have, right? So now you've gone past automation and into misinformation about your experiences or your past. One of the things that is happening in recruiters, Andrew's telling me about this. I've actually heard from recruiters that candidates are saying to them, "Can you send me a copy of the resume that you have?" Because they don't know what copy you have because they aren't the one who submitted it.
Yep.
So that is a problem that we're seeing, right? In that you've got candidates using automation and they don't have any guide rails on it, and it's kind of doing whatever it feels like doing. The
But,
second
but
problem,
go
oh,
ahead. Keep going. Keep going.
oh, I was gonna say the second problem is those same AI tools are now doing this very funny thing where for recruiters who know this, they know it. You put a job up, and an hour later, you're like, "Holy cannoli! I have 50 resumes," and you start clicking at them. You're like, "These are identical, not close, not like they're similar experiences. No, they are identical. The only thing different is the name and phone number, the email, and the address. Everything else is the same. Why is that happening? Why is that happening? Or it might even be like the companies and the years have changed, but the bullets are still the same. That's happening because these AI apply bots are finding a job for one person and then looking at the rest of their candidate base that is looking for jobs and then pushing them through as well using one resume copy. That is a much cheaper way for the AI to rewrite the resume because they only have to rewrite it one time using AI costs, and they can use automation to replace information otherwise. That is a different kind of fraud. And again, I think the candidates don't necessarily know it's happening as much as the technology they're entrusting to apply for them is doing this on their behalf.
Of course.
That's a crazy concept if you really think about how this is these third party systems that have gone out and done really, I think, fraudulent behavior on behalf of the candidate rather than the candidate themselves knowingly committing fraud, if that kind of makes
It
sense.
does make sense, but I think that that's kind of that's the conundrum too, though, right? Because I think that I think with the exception of those candidates that either have nefarious purposes or just know how to game the system or try to game the system and understand what they're doing with AI and technology and these platforms, most candidates are just trying to get seen, right? They don't know
Right.
what's happening. They're using these to apply. They are letting this happen. And by the way, in our data this year so far, which is the first time we've asked this, speaking of
Yeah.
nearly 50% of the employers so far participating this year say they are receiving fake candidates, and about 43% have processes or technologies to try to identify it, but it's across the board of what that means. Some of them are homegrown internally with their IT, some are some other systems. I know that Gem, I think, is trying to, but there's other players out there that are pushing AI fraud
Yeah.
detection. I'm sure you guys talked about it in your webinar too.
Yeah. I mean,
It's
we're doing it
reality.
too, but there's an interesting side problem here, right? So this is about problems and solutions. So this is the problem. I'm getting flooded. I can't even tell if they're good. I can't use my scoring. Like I can't use a hired score because if all the resumes look good, it's just going to score them all a day.
Sure.
So that isn't a solution for you. Um, but then if you disqualify them, like you identify it's a bot, so we have our own bot detection process. Um, we can identify it's a bot, but what do you do
You
about it?
mean Job Sync does, right? You're
Yeah,
saying
yeah,
Job Sync does.
absolutely.
Okay.
100%.
Yeah,
Everybody has, like, not everybody, but like you should be going, if you're not working towards this problem, then you're not paying attention.
for sure.
So identifying is only half of the problem. So obviously it's not going to be complete. It's not going to be perfect.
Hmm.
I would, and part of me, I just want to say this out loud, hates the idea of punishing people for finding a more efficient way to do something because in an employee setting, we would celebrate that. I hire you and you create automation, I'd be like, this is amazing. Now, if you create bad automation, and this is the problem, bad automation is not something to be celebrated, but they're because they didn't check, they don't know, right?
Yeah.
But the act of being a bot, I don't know is necessarily a punishable offense. Being a bot that provides misinformation, malinformation, disinformation.
Yeah.
That is a problem, right? So there's a fine line there, and technology can't tell the difference necessarily.
Time for a Talent Sync break. The Talent Sync podcast is brought to you by JobSync and the Surveil Candy Benchmark Research Program. The Candies helps you and your organization measure and understand your overall candidate experience ratings from pre-application to onboarding. Benchmark your candidate experience today. Go to surveil.com/CANDS candies. But you know what? Years ago, God, this pre-COVID, pre this AI buzz. Early on when I was running workshops, I remember I would talk about serial appliers
Yes,
and make a little joke in the room with the TA folks in the room that, oh, I'm sure none of you have these codes banned for life.
right.
In
You're
your,
on hire.
but and I think the unfortunate part of the fallout of this, right, is potentially that candidates unknowingly that are using these platforms may start getting basically thought of as spam and marked in systems where they're never going to come up again in the first place, right? Isn't that a potential?
Absolutely. I think that the unregulated, unmanaged AI apply bot that candidates are releasing into the market is going to have unintended
Yeah.
consequences, and that is a great example of one, right, for these candidates. They don't even know. I So this is a group of people that I don't necessarily think are operating in a malicious way.
Right.
I think they're just trying to get a job,
They are.
and they're
They're,
playing the game the best they can.
they think, well, here's the thing. Yes, they think they're playing the game. They think that this is the way, because whether other friends, colleagues, the platforms themselves have
Yeah.
convinced them that, and this is the unfortunate misconception. Even though, yes, I know AI is being used in recruiting technologies and employers are using it more. You and I have had that conversation more than ever. The majority of companies, I would argue, are only dipping their toe in their water, and they're not fully using AI yet to screen candidates out, etc. But candidates completely believe that, so they feel,
Yes.
on the whole, generalizing this, of course, that the only way to battle that is for me to use AI to be able
Yeah.
to be seen. But that,
Well,
yeah,
tying back to what you first started with, right? We have these bad actors that have gone out and tried to solicit candidates to
yeah,
get their help. And that is the first thing they all say is like, well, we're going to help you get probably the AI screening tool of the resume on the ATS. And you and I have talked about this in the past. The AI that didn't exist in most ATSs a year ago, right? But the argument to get around that AI has existed for 10 years.
yes,
So it's right. So the proliferation of this belief that AI is screening you out started long before AI was even contemplated in
correct,
TA. And now it's caught up. And I think we're seeing this explosion for sure.
yep,
So, what do you do about these AI bots? I think there's one more piece you have to keep in mind, which is I always talk about it: compliance, compliance, compliance.
yes.
So,
You always
can
remind me of that, Leah, and I appreciate that, and I think everybody out there who listens, and any TA leader and team who worth their salt, and I would argue that there's lots of folks worth their salt out there. They know this every day that this is a reality.
it is.
Compliance is a super duper reality, and and everywhere in the world, especially in the EU, especially I mean even with the kind of the hot mess from a regulatory standpoint that the US is in right now, there's still you've got to adhere. So you always educate us on that. Yes.
So I do think that this particular lawsuit that we keep talking about with our friends at Eightfold, and it's going to be less about Eightfold in all of this. Like they just
Yep.
happen to be the one that got hit. But I think the reality is third party data as part of the decision criteria is going to be a question mark, if not truly something you cannot do, or you cannot do without a dispute option. If you are using a third party to determine that something is a bot, that is third party data because that's how it was created, right? That system is disqualifying you on third party information.
Right.
I So I think a lot of companies are going to have a real issue doing an automated disqualification on the AI bot
Yep.
itself. And
Yep.
again, I think being a bot isn't necessarily illegal or bad. I think the other than the applicant statement, which I guess you could argue is it's not if that's not legal. Um, but the rest of it, providing that information via automation, especially if you were like, you know, Joe, I'm going to go on Reddit, find the code, make my own, so it's only going to apply for jobs for me.
Hmm.
Are you? And they are doing a good job. They're screening. They're like, I am qualified for these jobs. I'm reviewing it, and then I'm mass applying. Like,
Hmm.
at what point is that a rewardable behavior versus a punishable behavior? And I think that that's going to get tricky. So from the application stage, I'm going to say right now that one is really hard. And the solution is not going to be a solution. It is going to be a process mapping, multiple solutions you have to tie together to help your business flag, determine which ones you want to quarantine, which ones you want to reassess, which ones you want
Hmm.
to have a fast interaction with to see if they're real. Like there's going to have to be some sort of secondary process, post process that allows you to get better at identifying the actual automation versus the ones that just appear like they're automating because there is some differences there. I think it's messy. That one's a messy group.
And by the way, it is not going to be rewarded anytime soon. We are not. It's very much on the punitive end right now because of the sheer volume that we're talking about. So, and we both work with customers and very large enterprises that have a million plus applications a year, if not more. And the another reality, and so there's no way. I mean, even if you have somebody who knows what they're doing and they're a quality matched applicant, the reality companies, yes, are ensuring that they obviously are trying to be as compliant as possible, but the thing that I hear, without of course I would never name anybody, there not every single application is not being reviewed.
It never was.
No, you're right, it never was, but it's even harder now. And whether it's, you open up a rec and you get hundreds, if not 1,000 applications, and you close it, and that top 10, 20% are reviewed, and you're also trying to cherry pick and also source on the one. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on,
Yep.
and you are quote unquote it is. I just don't know how we solve for this unless we can get to a point where we're doing a better job at knocking folks out at the application stage,
I think
right?
that's it, right? You
Yeah,
have to start to reevaluate your knockout question approach, and you need to start having them. And quite honestly, you probably need to have some with traps. Like you actually need to create traps so you have a defense
yeah, that's
against
true.
knocking them
That's
out,
fair. Because
right?
knockout questions aren't new since we've had ATSs online.
And
We've
they're
had
very
not.
defensible,
Yeah,
fully defensible,
yeah,
right?
and
Because
that's not
it's
even
you
AI,
treat
by the way. That's not even AI.
no, no,
Not even at all.
but it is something that you can say, this is a qualifying question, this is how it was answered, and therefore that is a disqualifying event
Yeah,
and a discussion. So it holds up from a legal and compliance standpoint. And it doesn't take into account third party information. It doesn't say that that was a bot and that's why we disqualified him.
right.
Like you actually separate yourself. So how do you then do that? You have to create drop down questions. You have to create free text questions that are intended to force candidates to answer. And so a simple one for those who are trying to think about what they could do about it is ask people what state they live in as a drop down. It's a really hard question for most of the bots to answer.
Right. And so I think yes. So because we've I remember 10 years ago touting the fact that, oh, you need to make your application an easier process. And most companies today, we're talking 5, 10 minutes max just to get into the door. But it's the volume problem that we have today with the fraud, with the
Yep.
bots, with nefarious groups like North Korea and Russia trying to infiltrate through into
Yeah.
IT through tech jobs. I mean, it's mind, some of the conversations I've had with some companies that we work with, it's mind-boggling what they're, I mean, it's
Well,
like out of a Tom Clancy novel, but it's real though. It's like happening. So, I mean,
yep.
that aside, which are other security issues that need to be addressed, but to your point, we got to have tighter knockout. Got to have it.
You're going to have knockouts. So Kevin, there are ATSs that don't support knockouts now, right? So you've
What,
got
even the
that problem.
mainstream ones?
Yeah, or they are too generic that the knockout questions are you over
Got it.
18? And
Got it.
that's another good one. Instead of saying, are you over 18? Ask what age range people are in. Are you under 14, 14 to 16, 16 to 18, 18 to 21, or 21? I'm not saying those are your ones, but more than two options. That's another good one. The bots really get confused on how old you are.
Sure. That's a good
Um,
point. Yeah.
so again, ask questions that they're just not prepared to be able to answer. They are a like a lot of these bots, the candidates, like if there's a candidate listening to this, for the love of God, don't use one of these bots.
No.
Most of them are based not in the US. They are in countries in which there's no data protection, and you are giving an awful lot
Right.
of your
Of
private
your private
information.
information. You know,
Even if you don't give them your birth date and you don't give them your social security number, you still gave them your entire employment history,
yeah.
your name, your maiden name, your home address, your phone number, email. Like, oh, for the love, please don't give these bots your
Well,
information.
I think you we're what we've been opening up. I think this part in the conversation, we're opening up something that the whole entire application process needs to be re-examined and revised and rethunk and
Yep,
all of those things because the technology is moving faster than a lot of companies are even addressing, redundant fields that you're asking the candidates to complete
yep,
again. And I think that it's going to be so quick question as we kind of start to wind down a little bit too. So I know when I started this call, I was talking more about human fraud that goes on, and of course, people need to pay
yep.
attention to that. You need to ask the
We're
right
gonna
questions, and
let's get into that next.
the TA leaders that I've known for many years, and even and recruiters too, will tell you that, and it's harder for people new to the workplace and new grads, but you've got to work, you got to network. You've got to ask for help, and you
Yep,
network, and you try to identify and connect with people that are inside these organizations that you're interested in, which is a big part of it. But just really quick though on the how does, again, not necessarily like I want to plug JobSync, but I'm just curious, how does your fraud detection work? And then what are you reporting on for the companies you work with then? What do
so,
you
so right now we just flag. We're
Okay,
just flagging.
got it.
I am in the flagging stage of this program. Like
Okay,
I say, this is likely. I'm not ready to make decisions on it.
got it,
I
got
did
it.
see though, Kevin, something the other day I wanted to share. I think I hadn't seen this one before. Somebody put at the end of their application, it said submit, and then it popped a new page, and it was like, please record a video record a 1 minute why you'd like to work here. And it's not about what you say, it's about when that video you hit, it's about whether or not you hit start and actually record something.
Got it.
I was like, that I hadn't seen, first time I'd seen that, and I was like,
Yep,
that is a
yep.
clever way to, because for the most part you can embed a video player or video recorder into a web page. It's not that hard. You just have to redirect it at the end of the application, and it is just it's just a heartbeat check at that point in
Right,
time.
right, right. That's a good point, by the way.
It's a heartbeat check.
Yeah, that's
So
a good point.
uh, I think we're gonna wrap up. But Kevin, we got more to cover if we want to record again soon because
Well, we should.
the
We should definitely do
interview.
it in our next session because because you're dealing with human fraud, you're dealing with technology fraud. It's a lot and it's a lot. So right now, I mean, it's a lot for employers, yes, of course, especially those who are trying to remain compliant, but it's a lot for those people that are looking for work right now. And then it's a really rough market, and
Yeah.
trying to be seen and found, and and it's we're continue to see more layoffs. I mean, Microsoft's doing that like buyout program that they just announced, if you saw that, for individuals who are up to a certain senior level point. I thought this was interesting. But anyway, and then Meta announced layoffs, another 8% of their workforce. I mean,
Yep.
this is still technology shedding that again goes back to
I mean,
the overloading that we had. But
I I
after,
I talked to a company yesterday that found themselves in meta jail. It's kind of like Indeed jail, but in the Facebook version of
good
advertising.
God.
And I said, "What did you do?" And she's like, "I don't know, but I found out that the people who used to review your your content to see if you were violating any of their policies has been replaced by an AI." And she's like, and then when you escalate, as has always been true in Facebook, you go to nowhere. So they're in meta jail for a violation that they don't know what it is. It hasn't been revealed, and it's been determined by AI
Really?
that you can't, yeah, that you
See,
can't then
and this is
fight.
going to be this is going to be a huge. I think that's only the tip of the iceberg. It's one thing to try to traverse AI customer service bots now to get anything done and answered for. I mean,
Yep.
you're just not gonna know.
No, problem solving is not one of AI's better
No.
solutions.
And the humans we're letting all the humans go that would
Yeah,
help us answer those questions. So they don't know why they're in jail then.
they don't know. They don't know how to get out of jail. They don't know why they're in jail,
Wow.
and there is no one to ask or tell them. So it's they're really frustrated. You can imagine, right? This is one of the ways they reach out and find applicants and candidates for their business, and here they are um, in a virtual jail cell that they don't know what crime they committed, nor do they know the process of getting out.
Right. And it's the odds are not good that they're going to know anytime soon.
No, the
Why?
odds are not in their favor. This
No,
is the
no.
Hunger Games for sure.
This is definitely it. Well, we're definitely going to have to keep having these conversations because these are really painful realities for the all humans in the equation right now, on the employer side as well as on the
Yep.
candidate side. Anyway, Leah, as always, it's a pleasure to talk shop with you. So, and to get synced.
Likewise.
Yeah.
Likewise.
All
We'll
right.
talk soon.
We got it. Thank you for listening to the Talent Sync podcast, a Surveil Candy and Job Sync collaboration. More episodes soon. Subscribe to our podcast via your favorite podcast player today and stay synced with the Talent Sync.